Making movies has never been easier than it is today. Framelines puts the focus on people picking up a camera for the first time and those that have been doing it for years. Filmmaking's become the new garage band, and we want to tell their stories. I'm Johnny DiLoretto, and I'll be your host as we show you the behind the scenes of all kinds of movies being made right near you.
Framelines is brought to you in part by grants by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, the Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association, connecting filmmakers with resources, opportunities, and each other.
Framelines took their cameras on location to look behind the scenes of Steph Grieger's first film, Olskey.
Do you remember hitting her?
No, Mike, I want them. Give them to me now.
Dad, what happened? What the hell did you do? Get out!
Mike. Do you know what the girl's injuries are? How much of the last couple of months do you remember? Do you remember fighting Teddy Hendricks?
I wrote my first screenplay 10 years ago, and it placed pretty well in Project Greenlight, which was Matt Damon, Ben Affleck's project. And it did really well, and I enjoyed it. And so the next step was, well, what do I do with this screenplay now? You know, well, now you want to try and sell your screenplays. You want to try and sell your spec script. So I went out and, I was looking for opportunities for that, entered contests, did a lot of that, and I started looking at filmmaking itself and thinking, well, maybe I just want to, maybe I actually want to make the movie itself. Maybe I want to have a hand in actually telling the story, on film and visually. After I did a table reading for my screenplay, The Third Period, John Newkirk approached me and said, maybe we should consider, making this film. And I said, well, that would be great. And we had started talking to Sasha Levinson, who is a director in New York, and started talking to her about directing it. And she had another project come along, and I said, you know what? How about I direct, and could you support me in that? Could you just talk me through it a little bit and just kind of help me with the next steps? And she said, sure, I think that sounds like a great idea. And so that was it. So the story of Mike Olskey is essentially about an aging hockey star who becomes addicted to pain meds after an injury, and after a few terrible things happen to him, he has to basically pick himself back up off the floor, face his demons, and then sort of move on and move forward into glory and into accomplishing the goals that he wants to. We made the short because initially I had written a feature-length screenplay called The Third Period, but they always say the best way to get your work out there and get investors interested in making your movie and providing you the money to make the movie is they want to see what you can do. And so it made sense for us to create a short film that was based on The Third Period so that people could see that this was a movie worth investing in, it was a movie worth making, and so that's kind of where we started. We only had 2 days to get this done, and that meant that every single minute counted. So there was not a lot of room that we incorporated in for error. And our cast and crew was just incredible. Shooting in a rink, I think, is one of the first things that people say, that could not have been easy, and it wasn't. Our lead actor, Aaron Massey, the guy has never been on skates before. So we were working on a very, very short timeline. So it was like, hey, Aaron, you have 2 weeks to figure out how to like skate onto the ice, stand up, and swing and look pretty good doing it. And so that was challenging. Yeah, being a female filmmaker or writer in general is it's challenging. It's because you do run into a boys' club, but what you can do, sort of as a female filmmaker, is you just don't have to take it. I guess that's the biggest thing I can say is that if being a filmmaker is what you want to do, male or female, then you have to go after it with passion and energy, and you have to go out there and fight to be able to do what you want to do. I didn't have any issues on the set of Olskey being the director on that set. I didn't have any attitude like, oh, you're a woman, you don't know what you're talking about. But I do feel that boys' club mentality a lot. But I think the thing of it is it's two parts. For women to be female filmmakers and to get into the field and kind of go out there and do it, number one, they have to be invited to the table. So I think that, people out there, men who are in charge of all the different groups and all the different things that are happening in filmmaking, they first, number one, need to look around them and say, who is sitting at this table, and are women and minorities, are they represented? So number one, they have to challenge themselves to make sure that women and minorities are included. But the second part to that is women have to challenge people to bring them to the table. Women and minorities can't just sit back and think, well, you owe me an invitation to the table. Well, that's not exactly true. You have to go out and you have to earn it just like everybody else has to earn it. I didn't wait for somebody to say, hey, you should be a filmmaker. I said, you know what? I want to do this. I want to make this film, and I did it. So I would say that the first thing is that you really have to believe in yourself and have a vision for what you're doing and stick to that vision. A lot of people will try and sway you, or they'll, not in a bad way. I mean, everybody wants, what's best, but ultimately you have to believe in what you're doing enough that you go out there and you pursue it heavily, because you're going to be with this thing for a very long time, especially if you enter festivals and you get accepted onto film festival circuit. You're going to be with this piece that you've made for a long time. So you better believe in it, have a passion for it, and really hold tight to the vision that you had for it initially, and just stay strong in that.
Next up, Peter John Rosh shares some insight about making movies.
Motion picture editing is sometimes called the invisible art. An L-cut, also called split edit, is a device in editing that helps make going from one shot to another almost unnoticeable. If we edit a scene and only show the people who are talking, then the audience misses half the story, like this.
Code blue, room 305.
Here's the doctor.
The results from your test came back, and I have some bad news for you.
When is it?
You have a bronchial carcinoma.
What is that?
That's lung cancer. And I can refer you to an oncologist. You can discuss some treatment options.
No, that's not possible. I came in for a cough I've had for a couple of weeks.
I'm sorry.
All doctors to the ER.
Only showing the people talking is just too jarring. We want to see the character's reaction to what's being said to them. When we use L-cuts, the edits become more seamless because the audio or visual continued over the next shot. Psychologically, the viewer can fill in the blank of what the character speaking looks like after you cut to the person listening mid-sentence. Here is a scene with L-cuts.
Code blue, room 305.
Here's the doctor.
The results from your test came back, and I have some bad news for you.
When is it?
You have a bronchial carcinoma.
What is that?
That's lung cancer. And I can refer you to an oncologist. You can discuss some treatment options.
No, No, that's not possible. I came in for a cough I've had for a couple of weeks.
I'm sorry.
All doctors to the ER.
It's called an L cut because in the software on the timeline, it forms an L shape between the two clips. Reactions are half the story. A character's nonverbal responses sometimes relay more of the emotion than the dialogue. Framelines presents another interactive project. Visit our website, www.framelines.tv, and you can download the raw footage from our sample scenes and practice editing some of the techniques from the show. To practice L cuts, also known as split edits, you can download the unedited clips and create your own scene. All you need is a computer or tablet with free editing software, and you can create and upload your own version of the scenes. To get the footage, go to our Vimeo page at vimeo.com/framelines. Click on the segments, then click the download button. From there, you can choose the format you'd like, including Ultra HD 4K. Once you've gotten all the clips, import them into your editing software and start your edit. When you upload to YouTube or any other video site, make sure to use the hashtag FramelinesTV and follow the instructions from our site. Practice makes perfect. Have fun with this and be creative.
Scott Spears talked with producers for the Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association about what it means to be a producer.
What's an obstacle? You got the film going and something's cropped up. Ben, what is something, and be as specific as you want to bring up something. How did you step in and fix it? Either like you're shooting, or maybe it's at the script stage, but so we can get examples and maybe have different examples. But what's something that you've run into?
Well, we could be here all night with the amount of stories and that's it. But I'll just give you
pick
one.
One or two good ones.
Well, the one that's probably the most prominent that I remember is we were on my short film, The Horseman, and we'd packed it into 8 consecutive days that were split across several different states. We were going from Ohio down to Tennessee and back, and that was just a crazy shoot. And we had this one day which was going to be our big day, and it was at a period village. We had this village down in Tennessee. We had scores of extras showing up in period costume.
Big money being spent.
Yeah, or a big day that you couldn't go back and reshoot, so you had to get all your day in. So yeah, it was a really big it was a really big ordeal, and the scene was built around one of the main actors on a horse, and he had to have an entire conversation with our lead actor on this horse, and it was probably a page and a half, 2 pages of dialogue with that setup, extras moving around in the background. And we got the actor on the horse. We had done some run-throughs. He went to go set up for the shot, and we were just getting ready to shoot, and the horse kicked him off, and he went down, landed on his back, knocked the wind out of him. We had to bring in an EMT, take him off to the hospital, make sure he was okay, and thank God he was. But we lost our third billing actor in the most pivotal scene in the movie, and we had all these extras standing around. We couldn't just we couldn't go home. So it was kind of a last-minute split decision, and Vitus was there, so he can comment on his role in helping to sort of create something out of nothing. Yeah. And really it was we ended up grabbing we just grabbed an extra who had shown up, and we said, "You look really good. Throw on this costume." We looked at the script. We figured out how we could cut pretty much the entire scene out of the film and sort of do some rewriting that we would then dub in ADR and post. And we had lost kind of a significant chunk of our day dealing with all of the aftermath. So we had to condense that, get in there. We shot it. We were losing the light, so we decided let's all go handheld, to save on having to set up, equipment and stuff. And and we got it. We shot it. It worked. It hurt the film in the sense that that part of the story wasn't told.
Yes.
But it was a workaround that worked, so you could still make your day, still tell your story, and move on.
And those who didn't know anything, they didn't like go, what's going on here?
Yeah, no one who's viewed the film has any clue, has any idea that there was this whole scene there that was supposed to be pivotal to it. But those are those decisions you have to make on the fly, on the set, and if you don't, you're sunk. So
Well, that's the key to independent, low-budget filmmaking. Is never stop shooting. Yeah. It's just like, if you don't have an element, fake it until you get it.
And also just be aware of your story too, and how to make that malleable. I mean, there's the saying, you make one movie when you write it, you make another one when you shoot it, and you make a third movie when you edit it. So you have to constantly be keeping in mind what your story is and how to adjust to those things that will inevitably change.
So, Bill, it's time for you for your tale of triumph. I hope it's triumph.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, number one, there's not a day goes by you're shooting where you don't have a problem. I have never been on a set where there hasn't been where everything went picture perfect and nothing happened. We were shooting HD and we had tapes that didn't show up. Like we had no tape stock to shoot on, and we're just there the first day with no tape. We're waiting for FedEx to show up at noon. So I mean, there's always something. But the biggest ones, the hardest ones to overcome, are usually cast related, because I've had a director walk off the set, and you know what? We said, to hell with it, pick up. I start directing, or somebody else jumps in and starts directing. We finish the day. But when you have a cast member that goes down, it's very difficult to work around that. I've had cast members that were flying in from Florida or New York, and they just didn't make their flight.
Ouch.
And so we're expecting them that day, and they're not there. And we call them, the assistant director calls them, and they're still in Florida. And we're expecting them on the set right then. So, I mean, it's, those are kind of things that are difficult to work around. And you try to find ways, you get with the director and the writers and you frantically start rewriting stuff. You find out what you can shoot in that location. You try to do as much as you possibly can. But really the biggest ones are cast related, I believe. And money. I mean, if you run out of money and you can't get certain things, that's a problem. But,
yeah,
I mean, there's little things. There's egos. There's all kinds of stuff that happen on the set all day long that you just deal with as a producer and try to manage. But it's hard when you lose a cast member, or a cast member refuses to do a scene, or they change their mind, or they don't want to do this, or they have a breakdown because they fell in love with their co-star and then they can't work with them anymore because he doesn't like her. And I mean, there's those kinds of problems that you run into, and you're just like, what are we going to do? She's not going to do the scene with him. So
wow. That's obstacles.
Those are the biggest ones where
do they throw more money at them, or do you?
No, you got to pull them aside. You say, listen, really, and you got to. I mean, no offense to the actors in the room, but they're actors. You got to stroke their ego a little bit and tell them how great they are every once in a while, so they feel better. Yeah. And then hopefully they'll get you through the day and give you the best performance that you can get. But those are the big ones, and there have been some doozies.
All right, Phil, have you got a story of?
Well, yeah. Before I get to the tale of woe, Bo's absolutely right. Every day, all day, you're a problem solver and troubleshooter, and if you can't do those things, you shouldn't be a producer. You get very little sleep when you're shooting, and you have to always be in communication with people, because if your star doesn't make their flight, they're not going to land in the morning. You have to be able to get in touch with everyone as quickly as possible and say, okay, guess what? We're moving up next Thursday to today. So what we were going to shoot next Thursday, we're doing it today. Mm-hmm. Or we're doing tomorrow's shoot today. And being able to scramble and adjust and be malleable and adaptable on the fly. The biggest problems that I have had have been, I think, logistical in nature. There was a film that I was the line producer and am now co-producer on that shot here in town, and one person was tasked with finding locations, said it was no problem, then those locations went away, they had not secured a backup. We needed 2 locations for that day, and that morning I found both of them in 2 hours by just doing what producers do, or what you have to be able to do, is to go to someone and say, we really need your help, we really need a place to do X, Y, and Z. With a little set dressing, suddenly these 2 marble-lined rooms in an ancient building become dorm rooms in 1979. So, and you have to be creative. You have to think about how can I take this pig's ear and turn it into a silk purse, right?
Yes.
Or sow's ear, whatever it is.
Sow's ear into a silk purse, yeah.
How can I do that? So that was one problem. The other one was a film where I was the assistant director and the UPM at the same time. Imagine how that works. And we were shooting at the penitentiary in Mansfield, and we had 100 and something people in full-on zombie makeup for a big overrun zombie Holocaust type scene. And we ran into the situation where thunderstorm came in, we had condors in the air with lights and all these things, and it was thunder and lightning started, and it was not projected to stop. So it was a huge day. It was also a media day.
Oh.
So the media was there in droves. So the producer and I got together and very quickly decided that even though it would cost the production $3,000 to $5,000 to come back the next weekend to shoot the exteriors, that's the only thing we could do.
Right.
We couldn't lose that time. So we moved inside and shot all of the interiors instead.
Right.
And so that was huge. And that was when Mansfield got hit with the flood and everything, tornadoes and all this stuff happened. But we did what we had to do. We came back the next weekend, we shot it. We got all the extras came back and sat through hours of makeup again and did the whole thing again because they were excited about the movie.
Okay.
So part of that too is the winning of hearts and minds. When you have bad news for everyone, is you've got to make them feel good about the fact that you're all in this together. You can get over this, you know. But I think we've all had problems with cast members, and that those problems range from the emotional problems to the harshest experience in my career has been dealing with actors who are on drugs, things like that. So there's a dark side to it too, and you have to be able to deal with that as an adult and move on.
Ever see those names at the end credits of a movie and wondered what those people actually do? Elizabeth McPherson tells us in this clip.
Sound is 50% of the experience of a movie. Recording the audio on set is the responsibility of the sound department. The sound recordist, aka tape recorder operator, is a member of the sound crew responsible for operating the audio recording equipment on a set. They record to tape or straight to computer files. The primary goal is to record the dialogue on set, as most of the other sounds will be re-recorded later or used to create a music and effects track without dialogue later. The boom operator is a member of the sound crew who operates the boom microphone. The boom operator will twist or move the mic to record the dialogue. Once primary filming in each location is nearing finish, the sound department will record the ambient sound of each place, and it's called room tone. Even when things are supposedly quiet, each place has a distinct sound, whether it be a lawnmower or air conditioner or whatever makes the unique audio of that place. It's important to record some of that for use in editing later.
And now let's look at cliches in movies. We're sick and tired of cliches in movies, so here's another example of one of them.
I have an issue with movies. Some of the cliches that pop up every now and then just bug me. The 1980s were a glorious time for movies. Things that would never fly today in political correctness were totally rad back then. In 80s movies, what was considered romantic gestures would get someone arrested today for stalking. From Say Anything to When Harry Met Sally, these guys were romantic role models.
You, sir, are under arrest for violating the Civil Stalking Protection Order.
So if you're clueless and idolize an 80s movie, do not attempt to emulate. Otherwise, you'll be living out of a very different kind of romantic comedy, set in prison.
Before the film Jaws came out in 1975, none of the major studios thought that releasing a movie in the summertime would have any success. With kids out of school and the nice warm weather, studios felt that people wouldn't want to see movies because of all the alternate activities summer afforded viewers. Not only was Jaws released in the summertime, but the term blockbuster had to do with aggressive television ads for the week preceding the release of the film, at a cost of $750,000. When Star Wars came out in May of 1977 with similar results, the entire Hollywood industry rethought their release strategies, and summer became the dominant window for debuting big-budget movies. The success of Jaws' marketing and release prompted all the studios to follow similar patterns with their big-budget projects, which is still done today.
Framelines is always looking for stories about the filmmaking scene in this part of the world, so if you know of something or someone you think we'd find interesting, please drop us an email at info@framelines.tv. If you'd like more information on the filmmakers or to purchase a DVD of tonight's program, please visit framelines.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Cut and print it. That's all for this week. I'm Johnny DiLoretto. Thanks for watching Framelines.